last topic for today's PFTOT, something that continues to generate news. And look, I didn't start it. Colin Kaepernick didn't start it. The media didn't start it. The fans didn't start it. Everybody was minding their own business last week when the news came out that Colin Kaepernick would have a workout in Atlanta for all teams. And, Chris, I go back to that moment when I saw the first report from Adam Schefter. I just assumed Kaepernick set it up.
Yeah.
And I had somebody from the league reach out to me and say, we actually set this up. It's like, okay, thank you. Why? Like, it still makes no sense to me a week later why the NFL, as its 100th season begins to progress toward the playoffs, why in the world are you throwing, for lack of a better phrase, this turd into the punch bowl? Why are you doing this? This is a topic that you don't want to deal with. This is something that you don't want to mess with. Your teams haven't offered this guy a workout in 32 months. What are you trying to prove here? And everything that unfolded after that just confirmed over and over and over again what a bad idea it was for the league to say, we're going to set up a workout for you, because they should have known, given the history between the parties. There's going to be suspicion. There's going to be mistrust. You can extend an olive branch, and Colin Kaepernick's people are going to be braced that they're going to get whacked over the head with the olive branch.
Yeah.
And that poisoned this from the outset. They never should have done it. You need a better understanding of the circumstances and just let the sleeping dogs lie. That's what they should have done.
Well, I think there's so many things at play here. It's certainly not a good look for Colin Kaepernick or the NFL. I mean, that's the first thing I would say. Second off, I mean, do we know how long this was being planned beforehand? Well, that's where we're not quite sure yet either.
And I don't care. I don't care. Because here's the thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes as you make plans to do something, at some point along the way, you have that moment of clarity where you say, this probably isn't a good idea. Right. And that's where you need to be able, and this is a challenge, when you have expended time and effort and thought to a certain project.
Yep.
Your ego gets caught up in it. We can't stop now. We've spent time working on this. We can't stop now. We've already decided to do it. Well, you can stop anytime you want. So I don't care if it was 6 weeks or 6 months. It was a bad idea. And I don't care what the objective was.
Yeah.
If you want to get the guy back in the league, you start picking up the phone and calling people and saying, do me a favor here. Give this guy a workout. Do me a favor. Sign this guy. Man, look at your depth chart at quarterback. You could use this guy. Sign this guy. You will get X from us. You want to host a draft? You'll host a draft. You want to host a Super Bowl? You'll host a Super Bowl. Now, that's an extreme carrot to dangle, but there are, at any given time, a broad array of issues that teams are working on the league about. Different concerns, different things. And there's plenty of basis for a horse trade.
Yeah.
That's what you do. That's what they did with Michael Sam.
Yeah.
So I don't know that the league truly wanted to get him back in. The league wanted to create the impression they're trying to get him back in.
Yeah.
And whatever the league's intent, Kaepernick's people were suspicious from the get-go, and they had to know that they were going to be suspicious. See, if you're truly interested in getting the guy a job, you sit down. You don't.
They should have negotiated a waiver that made sense for both sides. That's the first thing that we're going to talk about.
That's a different issue. That's a different. I'm talking about. I'm trying to
agree on the parameters of the workout. Everything.
Here's the point. But Chris, when you have something that you tell Colin Kaepernick about on a Tuesday, and you're going to do it on a Saturday, 4 days isn't enough time to work out all the stuff that needs to be worked out to do it. That's part of what you have to take into account. Mm-hmm. You have to look at, how are we going to present this to him? Maybe you offer to come to him. Hey, we'd like to meet with you. And I wonder what this is all about. We want to sit down and we want to talk to you. The presentation of the first concept is critical.
Yeah.
Your flexibility or lack thereof when requests are made or questions are asked. I mean, you're going to be leery. If you're Colin Kaepernick, you've litigated against these people. You've taken between $1 and $10 million out of their coffers. They're not happy with you.
Do you think they were trying to pull a fast one on him by signing that waiver that had kind of the cryptic language where, they could basically say that, he's free and clear after this moment?
I'll say this.
Yeah.
I'll say neither side was interested in getting Colin Kaepernick on a team.
Right.
Both sides had other agendas at play.
Yeah,
the agenda was not, let's get Colin Kaepernick on a team. Because here's what happens, and you mentioned the waiver. They send the waiver on a Wednesday. I have the waiver. I studied the waiver yesterday. I couldn't let a client of mine sign that waiver in light of the history between the two sides. I think that would be malpractice to do it because it can be interpreted in a way, if you're going to be aggressive later, if the crap hits the fan later, it can be interpreted in a way that you've signed away your right to a second collusion lawsuit, to a lawsuit alleging that you were retaliated against because you filed the first lawsuit.
Right.
And that can be a very, very viable claim because it's very easy to find the motivation.
Yep.
The motivation is we don't like this guy because he sued us and we had to pay him money.
And we don't want him to sue us again and have to pay him again.
And hey, look, we've found this way. And so it's – but here's what should have happened. And here's where I think Colin Kaepernick's camp got it wrong. The moment you get that thing and read it, that's the moment you call your contact at the league office and say, look, this release you sent me, it's got some language in here that may be a little too broad. And we all know what potentially could happen. We don't want to foreclose anything here. There could be a decision made to file a second grievance. We should make sure that he preserves that. Surely you're not trying to take away his right to do it. And the league was, oh, no, we're not trying to take away his right to do it. But, if we can somehow luck into the opportunity to make the argument later that he signed away those rights, we'll take it. And so there should have been a negotiation then and there. They should have gone back and forth with alternate language to make it clear that he's not giving up those rights. What happened instead, no significant action was taken on the waiver until the day before the thing when Kaepernick's people went and got a different release, a Georgia Tech football release, which was very short, and said this is what he'll sign. Well, that sets up the fight. See, I think that neither side was serious about this being a real opportunity to get back into the NFL. So it was about playing chess, and it was about posturing and positioning. So at the end of the day, we win the PR battle, and if there's another legal battle, we win that too. That's what I think was going on from both sides. The league side and Colin Kaepernick's side.
I mean, I definitely agree with you with the league side. I do. And, I just wish Colin, I guess in my heart of hearts, this was at least, again, I don't know if it was totally realistic, but a chance for Colin Kaepernick, I think, to put the pressure on the NFL even more here. That's where I think it's all. I think he was ill-advised through this. Don't sign the waiver, but still have the workout there in Atlanta at the facility. Don't make it an hour away. That's the only thing I would argue.
Here's the thing about an hour away. Here's the thing about an hour away. And look, and for every position one side takes, the other side has a response. Does it change things for you if I tell you that 1 hour away from the Falcons facility also was on the way to the airport, that you were going to be passing by there on the way to the airport anyway? Does that change your 1 hour away criticism?
Yeah, I mean, it does a little bit. I won't deny that. There's no doubt about it. But I just know from the people I talked that were there, too, we're like, we're there at 3:15, and we're being told that the workout's going to start at 4 o'clock. And we're not going to get there in time either. So that's where
but this all hit the fan at 2:30. Then the question becomes.
But I don't think it filtered out to the scouts and everything who were there on the field kind of waiting around till then.
It gets back to my point that both sides were to blame.
I agree. I just, again, because I'm rooting for Colin Kaepernick, and he's obviously one of the 64 best quarterbacks in the world right now. I mean, he obviously should be on a team from playing standpoint. But it just opens, again, the door of criticism from the people that are haters against him, from the people who say he doesn't really want to play, and then the teams that might have even been dangling with the opportunity of like, oh, maybe we'll sign him. Now it just opens it like, oh, we can't sign him. This will just be a fiasco. It'll be a media craziness. It doesn't change it,
but it's the same thing it always was going to be. Because here's the problem, and this is like when you have Tim Tebow on your roster as a backup. There's going to be that group of people who constantly says he should be playing. He should be playing. Anytime the starter throws an incomplete pass, he should be playing. Remember what they did in Denver? They jumped him over Kyle Orton. He should be playing. He should be playing. No, it was over Brady Quinn. Kyle Orton was a starter. Quinn was a backup. Tebow was number 3. But we're pushing Tebow to the top of the stack.
And Tebow made himself available as a rookie every day to the media, which everybody, I know, rubbed people in the wrong way.
But the same thing will happen with Colin Kaepernick. If he's the second string or third string quarterback on another team, then the next step is going to be we want to see him on the field. We want to see what he can do.
Like I said, I just wish he would have gone and stayed there. Did the workout,
but how do you? But the problem is they got to resolve the waiver. See, this is
screw the waiver. He worked out without a waiver anyways.
But
that's all I'm going to say.
They're not going to let him work out at the Falcons facility.
Yeah, you're right. That's the issue.
And the other thing too was the video crew. He wanted to have full transparency. He wanted to have a video crew next to the Falcons video crew, so whatever is generated matches. Right. And you can roll your eyes and you can guffaw and you can scoff, but that reflects a failure to understand the poisonous nature of the relationship. And I have dealt with relationships like that when I was practicing law. And it gets to a point where the concerns that the parties who have been fighting forever have seem unreasonable to those of us on the outside.
Why was it so hastily planned? Why didn't they call?
The NFL.
And why didn't they all get together like 3 weeks ago and go through, here's what we want for the workout, let's make this work? So that's where it just seems, yeah,
that's
you're right.
my point.
I know, it seems crap.
Here's what you do. If you really want to do this, you get on the phone and you say, Colin, we'd like to come meet with you.
Yeah.
We'd like to take you out to dinner. We'll get a private room at a restaurant near you, and we want and have your agent show up, and we're gonna have we got something we want to talk to you about.
Yep.
And it's good. Okay. And that's at a minimum what you do. You don't just call them up and say, hey, we're doing this on Saturday. You got 2 hours to let us know whether or not you want to do it. What the hell is that? Right? Well, can we do it on a Tuesday? No. Can we do it next Saturday? No. It's got to be this Saturday.
Yeah.
Well, why?
Why? I know.
I mean, and again, you have to take into account the relationship is already fractured beyond repair. That's the issue. You can't unring that bell. And the NFL tried hastily. And again, is this about getting it back in the league? Is this about PR? Is this about coming out of it with a piece of paper that you can wave around at some point later saying, aha, he signed the document that allows us to defeat his legal claims? If you're Colin Kaepernick and you're his agent and lawyer, you have to be worried about all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's not unreasonable.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became gamesmanship, and that's where both sides are to blame.
Yes.
It wasn't about the best possible opportunity for him to get back in on either side. It was about putting yourself in the best possible light as this thing continues to go forward, wherever it may go. But here's the bottom line. By doing this, folks, the NFL has invited that second lawsuit. The NFL has taken a noxious, toxic stew that had been on the back burner with the fire just at that little flicker where it's barely on.
Right.
And they cranked it. They pulled it to the front and they cranked it all the way up.
Yeah.
And that was stupid.
It was.
They should have just not done anything.
I agree.
Kaepernick, who's been denied a job with the NFL for 3 years, held a workout on Saturday, but it was not the one the NFL originally organized. They called him earlier in the week to do so. It was very last minute. It was supposed to take place at the Atlanta Falcons training facility, but then it had to be moved to a high school named after Charles Drew. 25 teams were supposed to be at the Falcons workout, but about 8 teams made it to the secondary workout. What the heck actually happened this weekend? First off, I'm going to show you what Kaepernick had to say after the workout. Press play.
It's important that y'all are here. Y'all been attacked for the last 3 years. Y'all continue to be attacked. We appreciate what y'all do. We appreciate you being here today. We appreciate the work you do for the people and telling the truth. That's what we want in everything. I've been ready for 3 years. I've been denied for 3 years. We all know why I came out here, showed it today in front of everybody. We have nothing to hide. So we're waiting for the 32 owners, the 32 teams, Roger Goodell, all of them to stop running. Stop running from the truth, stop running from the people. We're out here, we're ready to play. We're ready to go anywhere. My agent, Jeff Nally, is ready to talk to any team. I'll interview with any team at any time. I've been ready, I'm staying ready, and I'll continue to be ready. And to all the people that came out here today to support, I appreciate y'all. I love y'all. To the people that aren't here, I'm thinking of you. I appreciate you supporting from where you are. We'll continue to give you updates as we hear. We'll be waiting to hear from Roger Goodell, the NFL, the 32 teams. We'll let you know if we hear from them. Ball's in their court, we're ready to go.
Howard Bryant of ESPN was actually there in Atlanta. He joins us right now. Howard, this was crazy. I said from the outset that the die was cast the moment this workout was scheduled. Here's Colin Kaepernick, settles his lawsuit back in February. You don't hear from the NFL for 9 months. All of a sudden, they get a phone call. Hey, workout, Atlanta, 3 p.m. Saturday, be there. I mean, that's essentially how crazy this was. Execs didn't know what was going on. Teams didn't know what was going on. Workouts normally don't happen on a Saturday, which is a busy day in the NFL. The second busiest day of the week normally happens on a Tuesday. Then we have the drama with who's going to be there, who's he throwing to, who's going to be leading the workouts. Is the media allowed? Is it private? Is it open? Who's shooting video? And then, of course, this waiver. This was a mess that the NFL knew was going to be a mess the moment they suggested it.
Well, not only was it a mess, Roland, but at the start, the minute last Tuesday when the NFL called the Kaepernick team and told them of this workout, the very first thing the Kaepernick team said was, well, wait a minute, we haven't heard from you since the winter. How about we take a little bit of time, step back, and do this the right way. How about we do it next Saturday? So we have, or next Tuesday, which is a work day for the NFL, because on a Saturday you've got the coaches preparing for the next day's game. You've got the GMs preparing for the next day's game and the next week's game. And you've got all the head major scouts watching the college football games. The NFL said no to that. The Kaepernick team came back and then they counted, well, let's do it. If Saturday is such a magic day, let's do it a couple Saturdays from now so we all have time to hammer out all of these details. The NFL said no, essentially gave them a 2-hour window, not a 3-day window, a 2-hour window from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. to say yes or no, and then that's when the scramble began. That was on last Tuesday, and by Thursday it wasn't even clear who was exactly going to be running the workout. That's when they got Hugh Jackson, the former Raiders and former Browns coach. And so the 4 days leading up to the workout had been this rolling negotiation that never quite got settled.
And when you talk about these various negotiations, people out there are saying, other sports commentators and journalists are saying, Kaepernick, he should have actually just done it. He should just sign the waiver. Now, as we understand, Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, as well as yourself, y'all been breaking this down, that the waiver the NFL wanted him to sign is not the traditional injury waiver.
No, it's not the traditional injury waiver. And the Kaepernick team says that they offered a standard waiver in place of this draconian waiver that covered virtually all scenarios that the Kaepernick team, whether it was injury, whether it was discriminatory questions, whether it was discomfort with any other of the details that were in the agreement, that they had given away all rights, that they had waived all rights to take action against the NFL in order for this workout to take place. For example, one of the key questions is, at the end of the workout, there was supposed to be an interview session with NFL executives, or the NFL, whoever was there, the NFL representatives. And suppose, just hypothetically, which really would have happened, if an NFL representative had asked Colin, are you planning to kneel if you are admitted back into the NFL? And if he said yes, and no team then chose to sign him, he would be unable. He would have waived his right to take any action against the NFL, even though that's a discriminatory practice. So naturally, they did not sign this, and it ended up being an issue that killed the deal at the last minute. And when I talked to Kaepernick's attorneys, they told me that they were under the impression that all of these details were resolvable until they weren't, up until about an hour before the workout was supposed to take place. The NFL just wasn't going to budge from a couple of those points.
Now, I was watching First Take ESPN earlier, and on that show, Stephen A. Smith said clearly Colin Kaepernick and his people had this thing planned out in advance, the second workout. But I talked to Colin Kaepernick's team. I was told point blank that they had 25 minutes on Saturday, that they had their Know Your Rights campaign a few weeks earlier in Atlanta. They put calls out. The community responded. The community said, we got a location, Charles Drew High School. The people who did security for Colin Kaepernick said, don't worry about it. We're going to call other people. They're going to handle security. They were able to check the media and other people who were coming there. And so Cap's team said, no, we didn't sit here and have this thing all planned out. That it was not our idea to have a second workout. They said that they sprung to action, and it was black people, the community, who stepped up and quickly mobilized to make this thing happen. You were there. What happened?
Well, there are two things about this that were absolutely phenomenal. One of them was out at Flowery Branch, about an hour northeast of Atlanta, where the Falcons facility is. There were about 2 to 3 white protesters, anti-Kaepernick folks out there from the beginning of the morning. At about 10 a.m. for a 3 p.m. workout, they were out there standing. 3 American flags, 1 sign that called Kaepernick an un-American loser, and another sign that just said stand for the flag. And across, there were 2 pro-Kaepernick supporters. Within an hour and a half to 2 hours, there were nearly 100 Kaepernick supporters out there, and mobilized by the Kappas, by Colin Kaepernick's fraternity. They were out there mobilized in full force when this thing got moved. And by the way, it's incorrect that this had been planned. They had begun, the Kaepernick team had begun by Friday afternoon, Friday night. They started to think that this thing was going sideways. So they did begin to mobilize on the ground somewhere Friday mid-afternoon, Friday night. By Saturday, it was clear that there may be a need. By about noontime on Saturday, it was clear that the ground forces that Kaepernick had absolutely went into action. But yes, what they did was probably a 12 to 15-hour mobilization to go find a new location, to go find a school, to get an email blast out. It was essentially, it was almost like a grassroots political campaign, the way they were able to get boots on the ground and find this new location to make sure that at the end of the day, no matter what happened with the NFL and with the Kaepernick team, at the end of the day, there would be a workout, there would be video, and now that video has been sent to all 32 teams.
And that is the key right there. The Kaepernick people said, we do not trust the NFL. The NFL did not want media there. Also, the NFL said that the Kaepernick team wanted Nike to be there to shoot a promo or PSA or commercial. Nike came out with their own statement saying that was absolutely false and want a retraction. But the shooting of video is critically important because the Kaepernick team said if the NFL is the one who's going to control the video, I don't know what they're going to send out. And the bottom line is they could say he had arm issues. They could have only shown the passes that were dropped, things along those lines. But here's the thing, Howard, you tweeted this. Because the media was allowed in, because there are media outlets who actually live stream the whole deal, now the entire world got to see it. And here's what's hilarious. The NFL network, which the NFL owns, has been using the very video that we all saw. Had the original rules existed, the only way the NFL network would have been able to show that video is if it was given to them by the NFL. So the very network that the NFL owns is taking advantage of the video that he wanted everybody to see.
And then being upset that the workout took place at all. So on top of that, this was the thing that Kaepernick's legal team had said to me as well, that they did not think. They said, of course, with these two entities suing each other back and forth for the last couple of years, why is this such a big deal? To think that to have an extra video crew there would be a non-starter, would be a deal breaker, was preposterous to them. And that they are very upset that it feels like they are receiving the brunt of the negativity for this not taking place. They didn't think that these issues were unresolvable. They figured, what's the big deal having a camera crew there? It's not like it's an entire takeover. It's just an independent crew that you would have thought that with all the bad blood between these two sides, it wouldn't have been a big deal, and it turned out to be a deal breaker.
This is last question for you. I know you have to go. You got lots more reporting you're doing. Here's what jumps out to me, Howard, as the most important thing. It's all about narrative. The Kaepernick people understood that. The NFL wanted to control the narrative. But by him saying, allow the media in, allow the cameras in, then guess what? It's shared narrative. The NFL has put out all this information. They said, oh, the waiver was not really that big of a deal. Now we're actually seeing Pro Football Talk, as I said, got a copy of the waiver. And they said it is totally different than what is normally signed. Also,
yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm going to say it's completely different. And the biggest difference in the waiver, the difference between the standard injury waiver and the waiver that the NFL wanted Kaepernick to sign, was that Kaepernick was signing away all rights. And those rights also include, let's suppose you get an injury settlement later on. Let's suppose that something takes place that is an actionable offense that took place at this workout, that he would have had absolutely no rights whatsoever. He would have had no recourse. And so this really was sort of a kiss the ring situation where it wasn't just enough for him to come back to the NFL. It was certainly to come back on one term and one term only, and that's the NFL's terms.
Last question for you, and this is why I think all of this is so important. I'm looking at all these people who are offering commentary on television and offering radio. And the reality is this boils down to an issue of trust. The NFL rushed this thing. They wanted it to take place in a handful of days. And here are two sides that simply do not trust each other. And when you have two sides that don't trust each other, transparency and honesty are the two most important things here. And the thing that I am most bothered by are the people who all of a sudden the onus is all on Colin Kaepernick, saying he shouldn't have worn a Kunta Kinte shirt, that he should have went ahead and signed the waiver, that he should have went ahead and done the workout. And also saying that, and this is where I take exception with one of your colleagues, Stephen A. Smith, a good friend of mine, fellow journalist, saying, I don't believe he wants to play football, wants to be a martyr. I've talked to Colin Kaepernick. He wants to play football. You don't work out for 5 days a week for 3 years if you don't want to play football.
Well, and there's also something else to that role, and you also don't put yourself through this level of humiliation, because that's also what's happening, is that I think that anyone who's been in the public eye, you've been there, I've been there, we've all been in these situations where you have the public attacking you. You wouldn't do this to yourself if you really didn't want to play in the National Football League. Let's also remember, this is a closed business. It's not like, okay, if ESPN doesn't want me to work for them, I can go call the New York Times or the Washington Post, or I can call the Boston Globe or somebody else and find some place to work. There's only really one place for him to work at the highest level in the world, and it's right here. He put himself in this situation because he wants to play, but he doesn't want to play on his hands and knees.